Have you ever been in a conversation where
Okay.
the words just seem to slip and slide
Yeah.
and you're just left feeling totally lost? We've
Mm,
all been there, haven't we?
absolutely.
Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into some of those
Oh,
tricky English words and phrases.
okay.
The kind that can make you feel like you're missing a secret decoder ring.
Oh, absolutely. English is full of these little
Right.
linguistic traps
Yeah,
that can trip up even the most seasoned speaker.
it's true. So we're going to tackle 4 specific words and phrases today
Okay.
that might be familiar, but maybe you haven't really thought about their deeper meanings and how they're used.
Right.
We'll be exploring ambiguous, anomaly, go off on a tangent, and take a rain check.
Sounds like a fascinating lineup.
It is, and I'm excited to unpack these words and phrases with you.
Yeah.
Let's start with that feeling of utter confusion,
Okay.
that sense that you're in a linguistic fog.
Okay.
You know the word I'm talking about, ambiguous?
Yes. Ambiguous.
Yes.
It's a word that perfectly captures that feeling of uncertainty.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
trying to walk through a room full of smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. Have you ever encountered a poorly written law or contract
Oh, absolutely.
where the wording is so unclear that it's open to multiple interpretations?
All the time.
Yeah.
And that's where ambiguity can become a real problem.
Yeah.
Think about something like the Constitution.
Okay.
It's intentionally ambiguous in some places,
Oh, interesting.
which has led to centuries of debate and interpretation by legal scholars.
It's like a linguistic puzzle
Precisely.
that everyone's trying to solve.
And sometimes there's no single right answer.
Right.
But in everyday communication, ambiguity can lead to misunderstandings
Of course.
and frustration.
For sure. Imagine getting directions that are so ambiguous
Right.
that you end up completely lost.
Nobody wants that.
No one wants it.
No,
Recognizing ambiguity is crucial for effective communication.
absolutely.
Hmm.
It's about understanding that words can have multiple meanings
Right. Okay.
depending on the context.
Okay, so let's move on from the fog of ambiguous to something
Yeah.
a little more geometric.
Okay.
Have you ever been chatting with someone
Yeah.
and they suddenly veer off into a completely unrelated story?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're talking about the weather,
Yes.
and bam, they're reminiscing about their trip to Disneyland 15 years ago.
Yes, that's a classic example of going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
And it's not just a conversational quirk. It actually has roots in geometry.
I've always wondered about that.
Really?
It makes me think of those confusing diagrams from high school math class.
No need for flashbacks.
Huh.
It's a simple concept, really. Imagine a tangent line
Okay.
touching a curve at just one point
Okay.
and then veering off in a different direction.
So the conversation is like the curve,
Exactly.
and the unrelated story is the tangent line
Yes.
shooting off into the unknown.
And just like those tangents in geometry,
Yeah.
conversational tangents can sometimes lead us to unexpected
Yeah.
and interesting places.
They can be frustrating, too, if you're trying to stay focused on a particular topic.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of going off on a few tangents myself.
Of course.
But it's interesting.
With that.
There's actually a cognitive basis for this.
Oh, absolutely. Some people are more prone to tangents than others.
Oh, really?
And it has to do with the way our brains make associations.
Hmm.
For some, those connections are more rapid
Wow.
and wide-ranging, leading to those delightful
Yeah.
or sometimes frustrating conversational detours.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are constantly making connections,
Mm-hmm.
drawing lines between seemingly unrelated things.
Precisely. And sometimes those connections lead us down rabbit holes of fascinating information.
It's all part of the adventure of language, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of adventures,
Okay.
let's shift gears to a word that's all about the unexpected.
All right.
Anomaly.
Okay. Anomaly. It sounds kind of
Okay.
mysterious and scientific.
Think of it this way. You're working on a puzzle, and you find a piece
Okay.
that just doesn't fit with the rest.
Right.
That misfit piece, it's an anomaly.
Okay.
It deviates from what's normal or expected.
I like that analogy. So an anomaly is basically
Exactly.
a rule break.
It's something that disrupts the established pattern,
Right.
and sometimes those disruptions can lead to amazing discoveries.
Can you give an example of something from history, maybe?
Of course, think about the discovery of penicillin.
Okay.
Alexander Fleming noticed that a mold had contaminated one of his petri dishes,
Okay.
and it was killing the bacteria around it.
Interesting.
That was an anomaly, an unexpected observation
Wow.
that led to one of the most important medical breakthroughs
Right.
of the 20th century.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So anomalies can be exciting because they challenge our assumptions about the world.
They certainly can. They force us to question what we think we know
Right.
and open up possibilities for innovation and growth.
It's like anomalies are little invitations. Yeah.
To step outside our comfort zones and explore new territory.
Beautifully put. And sometimes those unexpected detours lead to the most rewarding destinations.
All right, one last word for this segment.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about a phrase that's both practical
Okay.
and steeped in history. Take a rain check.
Ah, yes, a classic idiom
Right.
with a fascinating backstory.
Imagine this. You're at a baseball game back in the 1800s,
Okay.
and suddenly rain,
Mm-hmm.
the game gets postponed,
Right.
but you don't lose out. You get a rain check ticket to come back another day.
You've painted a vivid picture.
I try.
And over time, the meaning expanded beyond baseball.
Oh.
Instead of a literal ticket, it became...
A polite way to postpone an invitation.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a way of saying, I can't do it now, but I'd love to reschedule.
I love how language evolves like that, taking a word or phrase from one context and giving it a whole new life in another.
It's a testament to the flexibility and creativity of language.
Yeah, it really is.
And take a rain check is such a versatile phrase. It's a much softer and more friendly way of saying no than just flat out declining. Like, imagine a coworker invites you to happy hour after work.
Okay.
But you're exhausted. Instead of saying, no, I'm too tired, you can say, I'd love to, but can I take a rain check?
Exactly.
It keeps things positive and open for another time.
Precisely. It's all about maintaining social grace and preserving relationships.
Take a rain check is definitely going in my everyday vocabulary toolbox.
I think you'll find it quite useful.
It's so much better than awkwardly trying to come up with an excuse.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered some fascinating ground today.
We have indeed.
From the fog of ambiguous to those conversational tangents.
Yes.
The rebellious nature of anomaly and the historical charm of take a rain check.
And it's a reminder that language is full of surprises and hidden depths.
It really is. We'll be back in a flash to delve even deeper into these words and phrases.
Okay.
And I have a feeling we'll uncover even more linguistic gems.
Sounds good.
Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's amazing how much depth we can find in these seemingly simple words and phrases.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see them pop up everywhere in my daily life.
That's the beauty of language awareness. Once you start paying attention,
Right.
see these patterns and nuances everywhere. It's like you've unlocked a secret code.
You're right. And speaking of codes,
Yep.
I've been thinking about take a rain check
Yeah.
and how it's evolved into this almost universal code
Right.
for politely postponing something. But is there a difference between take a rain check
Okay.
and get a rain check?
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard both.
That's a great question. And you have a sharp ear.
Oh,
There is a subtle difference,
okay.
even though they're often used interchangeably.
Okay.
When you say take a rain check,
Right.
it implies that you're actively choosing to postpone something.
Okay.
It's your decision.
Right.
But get a rain check suggests the postponement
Okay.
is due to circumstances beyond your control. I see. Like that rained out baseball game we talked about earlier.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So if my friend cancels our coffee date
Right.
because they have a sudden work emergency, I'd say, oh, no problem. I get it, rain check.
Exactly. It acknowledges the situation
Right.
and suggests rescheduling without putting any pressure on them.
Right.
It's a smooth way to navigate
Yeah.
those unexpected changes in plans.
So take is for when you're making the choice, and get is for when it's out of your hands.
Yes.
I'm going to start paying closer attention to that.
Good.
Now, what about ambiguous? We've talked about how it can be confusing.
Right.
But are there any situations where ambiguity...
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And you're right, ambiguity isn't always the enemy
Okay.
in creative contests like poetry,
Okay.
songwriting,
Right.
or even visual art. A bit of ambiguity can be incredibly powerful.
Oh, I see what you mean. Leaving things open to interpretation can spark the listener
Exactly.
or the viewer's imagination and draw them into the work more deeply.
It creates a sense of mystery
Right.
and invites the audience to participate in the creative process
Yeah.
by bringing their own experiences and perspectives to the work.
It becomes a conversation between the artist and the audience.
Yeah.
With ambiguity acting as the bridge between them.
I like that.
I like that it's like those open-ended movie endings.
Yes.
That leave you thinking about the possibilities long after the credits roll.
It's not always about spelling everything out.
Right.
Sometimes the most evocative art is the kind that leaves room for individual interpretation.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to writing.
Well, it depends on your goals, of course.
Right.
Clarity is still crucial in many situations,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to communicate information accurately.
For sure.
But knowing how to use ambiguity strategically
Okay.
can definitely add depth and richness
Right.
to your writing or any form of creative expression.
Okay, I'm adding strategic ambiguity to my list of writing techniques. Now let's switch gears for a moment and talk about anomalies.
Okay.
We've established that they're the rebels, the rule breakers, the ones who dare to be different.
Right.
But can they ever be dangerous?
Another excellent question.
Yeah.
While anomalies are often positive forces for change and innovation,
Right.
they can sometimes signal something amiss.
Okay.
Think about it. You're driving down a familiar road,
Right.
and suddenly you see a car going the wrong way.
Oh.
That's an anomaly, and it's definitely a cause for concern.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are wired to spot anomalies
Right.
because they could potentially be dangerous.
Uh-huh.
It's a survival instinct.
Precisely, anomalies disrupt our expectations.
Right.
And in some cases, that disruption can signal a threat.
Yeah.
Think about medical diagnoses. Doctors often look for anomalies
Right.
in test results or physical examinations
Okay.
because those deviations from the norm could indicate an underlying health problem.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So anomalies can be good or bad,
Exactly.
depending on the situation.
It's all about context.
It's all about context. I'm writing that down.
Context is everything when it comes to language and to life in general, I'd say.
Okay. Context is king, but, we haven't talked much about go off on a tangent lately.
Right.
And I'm kind of missing those unexpected detours.
I'm always happy to go off on a tangent,
Uh-huh.
especially when they lead to fascinating linguistic insights.
Okay.
Speaking of which, did you know the word tangent itself has a pretty interesting history?
Oh, I bet it does tell me more.
Well, it comes from the Latin word tanger,
Okay.
which means to touch. So even though we go off on a tangent
Right.
to describe those moments when we veer away from the main topic,
Yeah.
there's still this underlying idea of making contact,
Okay.
touching on something before moving in a different direction.
I love that it's like we're weaving a tapestry of thoughts,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes those threads lead us in unexpected directions. But they're all part of the same fabric,
Right.
contributing to the overall richness and complexity of the conversation.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. It's like a dance, really.
Yeah.
We touch on an idea, then we spin off in a new direction.
Right.
But there's still a connection, a flow that keeps everything moving forward.
It's making me think about those conversations that might seem rambling or chaotic
Right.
on the surface, but when you really listen,
Yeah.
you realize there's an underlying logic,
Mm.
a thread that connects it all.
Yes.
It's like jazz improvisation within a structure.
Exactly. And just like jazz, those tangents can lead to unexpected moments
Yeah.
of beauty and brilliance.
It's all about embracing the unexpected
Yes,
and being open to where the conversation takes you.
I agree.
This is making me want to have a deep conversation about jazz right now. But I think we should stay focused
Yeah.
on our main mission, exploring these tricky English words and phrases.
Yes.
We've covered so much ground today, but I'm sure there's still more to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. Language is a vast and ever-evolving landscape,
It is.
and there's always something new to discover.
We'll be back in a moment to explore even more linguistic gems. Stay tuned. And we're back for the final leg of our linguistic journey. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot more confident about navigating those tricky words and phrases now.
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's not about memorizing definitions, but about understanding the nuances and feeling comfortable using these words in your own conversation.
Absolutely. And speaking of nuances,
Okay.
I want to circle back to ambiguous one last time.
Right.
We've talked about its potential for confusion,
Right.
and we've explored its power in creative context.
Yeah.
But what about the situations where clarity is absolutely essential?
Okay.
Like in legal documents, contracts, or even just everyday instructions.
Right.
How can we avoid ambiguity when we really need to be precise?
That's a crucial point. Precision is key in those situations. Think of it like building a bridge. You want every element to be strong and secure with no room for wobbling or misinterpretation.
Right.
So how do you build that kind of linguistic bridge?
Yeah, how do you...
You use clear, concise language, avoiding jargon or overly complex sentence structures that might trip people up.
So it's about choosing those strong, sturdy words that leave no room for doubt.
Exactly.
No wobbly bridges allowed.
And just as a bridge, needs a solid foundation.
Okay.
Clear communication requires careful planning before you even start writing or speaking.
Right.
Think about your audience. Who are you trying to reach?
Right.
What's their level of understanding? And then tailor your language accordingly.
That makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't explain quantum physics to a 5-year-old
Right.
using the same language you'd use with a fellow physicist.
Precisely. It's all about adapting your language to the context and the audience.
Right.
And when precision is paramount,
Yeah.
ambiguity is your adversary.
Noted clarity is king when the stakes are high. Okay, one last thought about anomalies before we move on. We've talked about how they can be both exciting and alarming,
Yeah.
but how can we learn to embrace anomalies instead of fearing them? I think there's a real power in being able to recognize and even welcome those moments when something doesn't fit the expected pattern.
Embracing anomalies starts with curiosity. Instead of dismissing something that seems out of place or unexpected, lean into that feeling of surprise. Ask yourself, why is this different? What can I learn from this?
It's like shifting our mindset from this is wrong
Exactly.
to this is interesting, let's investigate.
That's a great way to put it. Anomalies often challenge our assumptions and force us to think outside the box.
Yeah.
They can be catalysts for innovation and growth, both personally and professionally. Think about all the scientific breakthroughs that have come from researchers noticing something unusual, something that didn't fit the prevailing theories. Those anomalies sparked new lines of inquiry that led to incredible discoveries.
That's a great reminder that sometimes the most unexpected detours can lead to the most amazing destinations. Speaking of detours, I'm feeling one last tangent coming on. Okay.
This time it's about take a rain check. I'm curious, are there any cultural nuances to using this phrase? We've been talking about it in a very American context,
Right.
but I wonder if it translates smoothly across different cultures.
That's a thoughtful question, and it highlights an important point. Language is always intertwined with culture. While take a rain check is widely understood in English-speaking cultures,
Yeah,
it's wise to be mindful of those cultural differences in communication styles.
right.
In some cultures, it might be considered more polite to offer a specific reason for postponing rather than just saying rain check. It's always good to do a little research and be sensitive to those cultural norms.
It's like learning the etiquette of a new language, right? It's not just about the words themselves,
Exactly.
but about understanding the cultural context in which they're used.
And those cultural nuances can make language learning even more enriching. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, understanding not just their words, but also their values and perspectives. That's what I love about these deep dives. We're not just learning about words, we're exploring the connections between language, culture, and human experience. It's fascinating.
I couldn't agree more. It's a journey of discovery, and there's always something new to learn.
Well, I think it's time to bring this particular journey to a close. We've traveled from the fog of ambiguous to those delightful conversational tangents, explored the rebellious nature of anomaly, and discovered the historical charm of take a rain check, what a ride.
It has been a fascinating exploration, and I hope it's encouraged our listeners to pay closer attention to the words they use, the words they encounter, and the subtle ways language shapes our thoughts and experiences.
I hope so too. I know I'll never look at these words and phrases the same way again. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with today?
Here's what I'd say. Embrace the ambiguity of language. Sometimes those uncertain spaces are where creativity and connection flourish. Be curious about anomalies. They often hold the keys to innovation and growth. And when life throws you a curveball, don't hesitate to take a rain check. It's not about saying no, it's about choosing the right time and place to say yes.
Beautifully said. And to our fellow word nerds out there, remember the journey of language learning is ongoing. Every new word, every subtle nuance, every unexpected tangent is a step towards greater understanding and connection. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the beauty and complexity of language.
Until next time, happy wordsmithing.
And we'll see you on our next deep dive.